MK Dons have been promoted out of League Two. They'll be a League One side again next season. All that is to be discovered is whether or not they will win the title, which we'll find out this coming weekend. Ali, we know that MK Dons were incredibly ambitious coming into this season. It was time for the new owner to flex his muscles, and they went out and immediately hired a promotion specialist and gave an incredible team and one of the biggest ever budgets we've seen in order to do so. And he has.
Yeah, when you said all that remains to be seen is whether they win the title, I thought you were looking ahead to next season in League One. And we are going to touch on next season because, with congratulations to Milton Keynes and their fans for achieving promotion. I think what's much more interesting from a footballing level is how they'll go next season in League One. They will go up with great momentum, with very, very strong backing and a strong squad, regardless of the recruitment this summer. Paul Warne is who you allude to when you say a promotion specialist, because 5 promotions in 9 seasons now as a manager, with a couple of relegations in there as well, of course. It's an unbelievable record, and you can see why they identified him. You can see why he was persuaded to drop down, probably understanding that he was going to have a very, very good chance of going on another journey with MK, like he did with Rotherham. And I think his temperament is just perfect, really. For this job, where with great tools at his disposal, I think he throughout the season has taken the pressure off at the right time when that was needed for the team. I think he's put pressure on at the right time when it was needed for the team. I really think in terms of his messaging and his kind of overall leadership and his man management, it's difficult to find many better than him, quite frankly, at EFL level. And although on the other side of things, he's not considered to be one of the most elaborate tacticians in the game, Paul Warne has a very clear way of leading, has a very clear way of training, as I understand it, a very clear way of playing, a very clear idea of what he wants his teams to do in order to win football matches, and therefore very clear with what he wants in terms of players. And that is that clarity, I think, is just very powerful for a manager to have. And I think we start with Paul Warne here.
For sure. I mean, he's obviously, as you say, someone that we know when he's given the tools to kind of perform, he normally gets it right, and he's done so here. But we, when talking about MK Dons' success, I'm sure their fans will understand, but any neutrals listening will be saying the bigger thing it's not Warne, is it? It's cash money. Mm-hmm. And, we've got to talk about the finances in order to actually work out why they've been so successful, because they've spent a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure. August 2024, they were taken over by a Kuwait-based consortium led by Fahad Al Ghanim. That brought to an end, obviously, Pete Winkleman's, he'd owned the club for its entire history up to that point. So the first season with them in charge was a mess, to be honest. They finished 19th last season, which is kind of crazy to think back to. They started the season with Mike Williamson. They replaced him with Scott Lindsay. Both of those appointments could barely have gone any worse for MK. And the upshot was, if you stop focusing on individuals, the upshot was a quite extended era at MK of technical possession-based football came to a pretty ugly end at that point. And who knows exactly who makes the decision behind the scenes to go, scrap that. Yes, there was one famously good season under Liam Manning, a 3rd place finish in League One, 21-22, Scott Twine, etc. This isn't working, so scrap it and let's go, what you might say, back to basics. We have the funds to put together an absurd squad, and that's exactly what they've done. Now, MK's budget this season, and understanding that budgets are not made public, but we know a fair amount of people in the game. You hear things, sometimes things get exaggerated. So I'm not going to purport to know exactly what their budget is and exact numbers, but I am confident in being able to say that based on my knowledge and what I've seen, MK's budget is approximately double the next biggest budget in League Two, and approximately 3 times bigger than the average playing budget in League Two. And in a league where the discrepancy between budgets is much smaller than in League One, the Championship and the Premier League, that's obviously very, very significant, gives them a huge advantage, and they've made the most of that advantage.
Yeah, they have. It's also kind of interesting when you look at the way that they recruited and the players they recruited. Mendes Lang being a headline one, Aaron Collins being another. But I'd say normally when you see a club spend a lot of money on players, they buy the best players, and therefore they play the best football, if that makes sense, or the football that's going to reward having better technical footballers than your opposition. But I guess in the process of hiring Warne, that hasn't necessarily been the case. And they've actually played a style that is classically maybe more successful at League Two level.
Yeah, I mean, look, they play always with a three at the back, and then in front of that, Warner's tweaked a lot. He's got this array of attacking players. They've actually had not a great time with injuries. They haven't had their full group of attacking players all fit at the same time for most of the season. Tiny violins and all that. But I say that to say that there's been a bit of tinkering with how it's looked at the very, very top of the pitch. In the last few months, we saw Wiles and Gilby generally playing behind one striker. But equally, we've seen two up top with one in behind. We've seen a number of different things. In the last couple of games, they've gone very attacking with Wiles and Gilby with two strikers in front, Patterson and Mendes-Lang in the main. So yeah, strong platform with a really strong defence. When you've got three big strapping centre-backs, it's no surprise that they generally win the battle in both boxes, and that's a big part of winning football matches. Really, really strong aerially. Defending their box, defensive set pieces, very, very good. But they've scored 12 goals more than anyone else. So people might not think of them as some scintillating attacking team, but in the purest form, they have been the most scintillating attacking team in the league by quite some distance. It's a very effective attacking style. They don't take tons and tons of shots in games. In fact, 8 teams have taken more shots than MK this season, but the highest XG per shot and the highest chance conversion along that suggests that they bide their time. They have the intelligence, I guess, the patience to make that extra pass, and they understand where the highest quality shots are created from. And that's what they've done really well this season. 26 set-piece goals as well, doesn't hurt. 4th best in the league. Interestingly, with the style, I'm a bit torn here because on the one hand, I think this should translate quite well up into League One. I think generally having a really, really strong defensive platform goes up a league fairly well. And I think in terms of their individual players that they have at the top of the pitch, playing, they get the ball back to front quite quickly on the break when the chance is there to do so. And they've got good players in Collins and Patterson and Mendes-Lang and Hepburn-Murphy to be effective players on the counter-attack. But what's quite interesting is their record against top teams has been poor this season. Like, they are, I'm afraid to say, a bit of a flat-track bully. They have barely won away from home against any top-half teams. And their overall record against teams in the playoffs and above, so Chesterfield in 7th and above, is 2 wins, 6 draws and 4 defeats. So not great in the big games. And that is a bit of a red flag, stepping up a level where the average level of their opposition will be more in line with those top teams that they've struggled to beat.
It's interesting. Who do you say has been a standout player? Because it feels like even though they are kind of a EFL All-Stars team, it's been moments where certain players have been really important. And then I guess because of the injury issues you mentioned, they often come out of the team. So who's been the most crucial?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a core of 14 players, right? And you're right to suggest that a lot of them have had good spells for a month or two and caught the eye. But in terms of consistent performance, I'm probably looking at Liam Kelly, the midfielder, who's always been one of my favourites. Just an exceptional technician who only plays in League Two because he's short. Let's be honest. So he has so much responsibility on the ball in this team. As I say, loads of attacking players in front of him. He has to do a bit of a balancing act between providing good quality forward passing but not being too risky in possession and leaving them open at the back. And he's been excellent, and he's played more minutes than any outfielder apart from Alex Gilby. So he's got to be in there. I think Callum Patterson up top. Like, even though we knew he was going to be too good for League Two, I still have been taken by how good he's looked at this level. Just so smart. His touch is always good. His movement is good. His understanding of the runs being made by teammates, his passing and his goal scoring have all been absolutely excellent at the top of the pitch. And then Alex Gilby deserves a shout. Most minutes of any outfield player, 12 goals. He's that link between midfield and attack. And as he did in the penultimate game of the season, scores such brilliant goals. But they've got 6 players who've logged over 0.35 goals and assists per 90, which is a pretty absurd amount of players to be giving you that output. And then at the back, I didn't mention any of the defenders, but Marvin Ekpateta has been really good. Jack Sanders has been really good. The 14 players that I talk about, the most notable thing, and this is a privilege that having a big budget gives you, they don't have any young players.
Yeah.
The 14 players that have played the most minutes this season, the youngest of them is Luke Offord, who is 26 years old and was a captain at Crewe before he joined MK. So their youngest player of their core is a 26-year-old former captain. Like, it's no doubt really that in the second half of the season, guys like that with so much experience, they're not going to be fazed by a promotion run in. They're not going to be fazed by a brief run of poor form. They've just done the business. I also want to flag up, not a player, but an off-pitch staff member, Ram Srinivas, who is a big part of the recruitment team. Is basically an absolute genius. And I bring up Ram because he's a great friend of the pod, and he is has an incredible footballing story. And I'm pleased to say that Not the Top 20's played a bit of a part in it. So Ram is from Bangalore in India and is a football obsessive and an EFL obsessive, just like George and I. And when he was still at school, Ram used to listen to Not the Top 20 on the bus, on the way to and back from school, and has told me before he would then get home and listen to it again to make sure that when he was on the bus and there were some distractions and stuff, he wanted to really make sure that he really listened properly to the pod, so he listened to it back. An incredible guy who, from that, became so engrossed in the EFL and was such a genius, particularly when it comes to data science and recruitment and player knowledge at lower league level. Started a company called Market Insights, was one of the founders of Market Insights, which is in the data consultancy space within football, along with guys like Jay Sosic, who obviously left Market to work for Luton, is also a good friend of ours. And then Ram got hired by MK. So he moved from Bangalore to Milton Keynes, and he's been a part of the club for the last few years. And I'm just really, really chuffed for Ram to have had some success, because he is unbelievably smart. And I just love it when good people have success and get to celebrate what is, working in football is stressful, long hours. And I hope they're all having a good celebration.
Couldn't agree more. So what about next season then? Because I reckon there's a chance they're probably not going to see this as, just one step. They're probably going to be wanting to kick on again and have the pockets deep enough to do it.
Yeah, they should. They should. They will have a top 6 budget. I'm fairly confident in that. I think this season's budget would have been in the 5th to 10th range in League One terms, so you'd expect it to grow and therefore should be top 6 minimum. I think the style will translate fairly well. I don't think they'll have to make any major changes to the way that they play. No doubt they'll add some more eye-catching names, and they'll be in a higher league and therefore able to attract an even better quality of player to Mendes, Lang and Patterson. So I think you've got to be feeling pretty bullish if you're an MK fan right now. I'm going to be conservative right now because we're months away from the start of the season and a lot depends on who else is in League One. But I see little reason why they wouldn't be top 10 minimum. And I think they should be challenging for promotion, to be honest. So it'd be interesting to see what the bookies think. It'd be interesting to see what MK fans think. Obviously, the long-term future of the club, I'm particularly interested in because, what we're talking about here is tied to continued financial heft. Now, I think both in terms of how long the owners will be able to fund things at this level. We cannot know that right now. No one knows that about their owners, even though they enjoy the spend at the time. So a lot will depend on that. And then also regulations. In League One and League Two, there's a lot of concern about the losses that clubs are making. And there may well be some changes to the regulations incoming, which will make it more difficult to lose a huge amount of money. MK's attendance is around mid-table League One. So in terms of their, organic revenue, they've got that. They do make much more money from their stadium area because it's an event space as well. As I understand it, they do very, very well from that compared to a lot of clubs, which gives them a bit of a boost. But clearly, their ceiling slightly depends on how much, what their budgets will be, where they'll be ranked in League One, and if they do get up to the Championship over the next few years, which I think has to be very much on the agenda. Congrats, MK Dons, promoted from League Two to League One. Go out.